No one ever expects the moment their life begins to fall apart to start with something as simple as a man standing beside their parked car. But that's exactly how Damaris's day unraveled. Quietly, abruptly, and without a single warning. Later, she would replay those seconds over and over, wondering if she had missed the signs. The hesitation in the man's voice, the strange look in his eyes, the confusion tightening in her chest. But at that moment, all she felt was disbelief, because the very first sentence she heard was, "Miss, you can't enter the vehicle. Not your car. Not the car, just the vehicle, as if it belonged to someone else." Damaris stopped mid-step, hand pausing on the door handle. She stared at the man, waiting for him to laugh, to explain, to say anything that made sense. But instead, he said something that hit her like cold water. "Your boyfriend asked me to return it to the bank." Her heart stalled. A strange ringing filled her ears. What was he even talking about? At first she assumed it was a prank, a ridiculous one. Maybe a misunderstanding, maybe the wrong car, maybe anything, because the alternative didn't fit into her reality. But the man insisted, calmly, firmly, as if he were used to breaking this kind of news. And the fear she didn't want to acknowledge began creeping up her spine. No warning, no message, no conversation, just a stranger claiming that the car she drove every day suddenly belonged to the bank. She refused, of course. She wasn't about to hand over anything without a fight. "If you want it so badly," she told him, pointing down the street, "ask my boyfriend. He's right over there." And that's when the scene, without her knowing, shifted into something far more dangerous. Because just a few steps away, partially hidden behind a pole, her boyfriend wasn't worried. He wasn't confused. He wasn't even surprised. He was giving orders. Quiet, calculated, carefully timed orders. "Hide," he whispered to his assistant. "Wait for my signal." "And if she refuses?" the assistant asked. "She won't," he replied confidently. "Just follow the plan." It wasn't a plan of rescue. It wasn't a plan to solve a crisis. It was a test, a secret experiment disguised as a financial disaster, designed to push Damaris into revealing her truest self. But she didn't know that. All she saw was her world tilting sideways. By the time she reached him, her composure was barely holding together. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with anger. "Explain to me," she demanded, "right now. Why is your assistant saying my car belongs to the bank?" But instead of answering, instead of giving her the truth she deserved, he hesitated. He paused. He tried to redirect the conversation, as if the chaos unfolding around her wasn't important. "Let's talk about that later," he murmured. "There's something I want to ask you." And then he did the one thing guaranteed to ignite every emotion she was trying to contain. He knelt down, not out of guilt, not out of apology, out of choice. "Will you marry me?" The words crashed into her like a wave. Her car had just been taken away, her security shaken, her trust rattled. And he was proposing. It felt like a joke she wasn't in on, a performance she didn't audition for. The timing wasn't bad. It was insulting. She stared at him, stunned, wondering if he could even hear himself. Moments earlier, she thought she was losing a car. Suddenly, she realized she might be losing the man she thought she knew. "Tell me the truth," she snapped. "Are you having money problems? Is the company in trouble?" "No," he said simply. "Then what is this? Why would you propose now, of all times?" Her frustration spilled over. It wasn't about the car. It was about trust, about timing, about love being weaponized. He tried to give her a speech about love surviving through the good times and the bad. He tried to make it sound poetic, romantic, noble. But all she heard was someone hiding something from her. And suddenly, she couldn't stand being there another second. Without warning, she stepped back, bitterness rising in her throat. "I've had enough," she said quietly. "We'll talk at home." She turned away, not dramatically, not angrily, just tired. Too tired to fight for a relationship that felt increasingly like theater. Behind her, she didn't see the look of regret forming on his face. She didn't hear him confess to his assistant that the plan wasn't supposed to go like this. She didn't know that her reaction wasn't just disappointing to him. It was also the result he feared most, because he wasn't fighting for love. He was searching for proof of it, and what he found terrified him. The moment Damaris walked away, something inside Jose tightened, not with anger, but with a sinking fear he refused to acknowledge. He watched her disappearing figure, her shoulders tense, her steps quick, the way someone walks when they're trying to outrun disappointment. And yet, instead of stopping her, instead of calling her back, he turned to the man beside him. "Thank you for your help," he muttered, his voice low. His assistant nodded, unsure whether the plan was genius or absolute madness. But Jose didn't hesitate. He'd already stepped too far into this experiment to turn around now. He needed answers, clear ones, painful ones, the kind you only get when everything comfortable is stripped away. When the assistant left, another figure stepped forward, Paul, the man he trusted with the second part of the plan, the man whose role was far more dangerous than repossessing a car. Jose inhaled deeply. "I need another favor from you." Paul raised an eyebrow. "Last time, you said you'd never ask me for anything again." "I know," Jose replied quietly. "I shouldn't have said that. But I need your help now more than ever." "All right," Paul sighed. "What exactly do you want from me this time?" Jose didn't answer. Not yet. He simply said, "Come to the house. Once you're there, I'll explain everything." That alone was enough for Paul to understand the seriousness of the situation. He had known Jose long enough to recognize that this wasn't just some impulsive stunt or dramatic overreaction. This came from fear, a deep-rooted, well-hidden fear that Jose rarely allowed anyone to see. Before leaving, Jose added, "Come dressed in the sharpest suit you can find." Paul stared at him. "I don't own one." "Then get one," Jose said. "I'll cover it." A slow smirk spread across Paul's face. "Your wish is my command." But beneath the humor, he knew something was off. Later that day, when Damaris finally returned home, she still carried the residue of anger. It clung to her like smoke, subtle but suffocating. She walked inside with a question already forming on her tongue, one she wasn't sure she wanted the answer to. "Tell me the truth, Jose," she demanded. "What's really happening?" He forced a weary breath. He had rehearsed this part in his mind, how to make it believable, how to sound devastated but hopeful, how to appear like a man barely holding his world together. It was his moment to sell the lie so convincingly that even he might begin to believe it. "I made a bad investment," he said softly, eyes lowered, "and things are tight right now." "Tight?" she repeated, disbelief rising. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said with gentle resignation, "we won't have the car anymore, and the credit cards, they're canceled." Her silence was loud. And for a second, he thought he saw something flicker in her expression. Fear, maybe, or calculation. It was too quick to be sure. "Are things really that bad?" she whispered. "Yes," he said, choosing each word like it carried weight. "But I promise you, we'll rebuild. I'll fix everything." Instead of comforting her, the promise seemed to push her further away. There was a tremor in her breathing, the kind that came from trying too hard to stay calm when the world felt unstable. She barely had a chance to respond when the doorbell rang. Alejandra opened it. A tall figure stepped inside, Paul now transformed into someone else entirely. The tailored suit, the confident posture, the faint air of wealth, everything about him was crafted for this role. Damaris blinked. "And who is he?" "Someone who's helping us," Jose said. That was the moment everything escalated. Paul scanned the interior, nodding with manufactured curiosity. Beautiful place. I can see why he chose it as collateral. "Collateral?" Damaris echoed, stunned. "For what?" Jose swallowed hard, as if the words were painful to speak. "I asked him for money." Her reaction was instant. Shock, anger, betrayal swirling together into something sharp enough to cut. "You put the house at risk?" she shouted. "Are you out of your mind?" It was either that and or we lose everything. No, she said, shaking her head. This is your fault, your decisions, your irresponsibility. Her voice cracked on the last word. She couldn't stay in the room any longer. I need air, she muttered, walking out before he could reply. As the door shut behind her, Paul turned to Jose with a grim expression. Tell me why you're doing this, he demanded. Jose let out a shaky breath. I need to know how far she'll go once she believes I've lost everything. Paul stared at him like he was looking at a stranger. But you're supposed to marry her. Jose's gaze dropped. I'm not sure the wedding will happen anymore. Paul exhaled slowly. You know, this could blow up in your face. I know, but I need the truth, even if it hurts. Paul rubbed his forehead. Fine, I'll play the part, but I won't take responsibility for the outcome of your experiment. He grabbed his coat. I have an audition to get to. An audition? Jose blinked. For the role of the Lord of the Fairies, Paul said with zero shame. Don't judge me. But when Paul left, Jose finally allowed the truth to spill out. He was terrified, not of losing money, not of losing the house, but of losing the wrong woman, or loving the wrong one again. The next morning began with a quiet tension, one of those strange, heavy silences that hangs between people who are pretending everything is fine, except nothing was fine. Not the lie, not the plan, and definitely not the growing storm Jose had unleashed without fully understanding what it might cost him. When the doorbell rang, Alejandra was the one who answered. She didn't expect to see Damaris standing there, hair neatly brushed, expression steady but troubled, as if she had rehearsed her composure before showing up. Good morning, Damaris said softly. Alejandra nodded. He'll be here soon. You can wait inside. Damaris stepped into the living room with a polite smile, but her eyes carried the weight of unanswered questions. She didn't want to talk about the scene she caused the day before. She didn't want to admit how deeply the sudden financial collapse had shaken her, so she apologized vaguely, offering a small sigh instead of an explanation. Then a man cleared his throat. Paul. He entered with the kind of confidence people naturally associated with power. His suit fit perfectly. His watch gleamed subtly. His steps were deliberate. There was something about him that felt solid, dependable, the kind of man who didn't lose houses on bad investments. Damaris felt a strange flutter in her stomach, one she tried to shake off. You must be Damaris, he said, offering a warm smile. I've heard a lot about you. His tone was courteous, but something in it lingered, something almost too kind, too understanding. Damaris immediately found herself opening up, even though she didn't intend to. It's just been a lot, she admitted. Everything happening all at once. The car, the house, the money. I don't know what to think. Paul leaned forward slightly. You don't have to pretend you're okay. What you're going through would shake anyone. The words slipped into her defenses like a key turning a lock. She didn't even notice how easily she started talking, how she began unraveling fears she hadn't voiced even to Jose. Paul listened intently, patience etched into every nod, and when she finally exhaled, he said quietly, Come with me, just outside. You need fresh air. It felt harmless, friendly, a momentary escape from the pressure crushing her chest. Still, she hesitated. I'm not sure that's a good idea. We're both adults, Paul replied gently, and I'm Jose's friend. There's nothing wrong with stepping outside for a moment. When he said it like that, it didn't sound dangerous at all, just humane. So she agreed, and that was exactly what Jose was afraid of. Meanwhile, upstairs, Alejandra found Jose sitting alone, leaning forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped, looking like a man trying to carry an invisible weight. You're doing something reckless, she said softly. He didn't look at her. I just need the truth. By lying to her? Alejandra asked. By creating a disaster just to see how she reacts? This isn't just about her. Jose whispered. "It's about me, too. I'm tired of ending up with the wrong person. I'm tired of thinking I found love only to realize I was fooled. And what if you're fooling yourself right now?" That made him lift his head. Alejandra stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You keep looking for love in the places that hurt you, in the people who leave when things get hard." "Then where am I supposed to look?" he asked, frustrated. "Tell me." Her eyes softened, filled with a sadness she had carried alone for too long. "You should look at the ones who have loved you quietly, the ones who stayed even when you didn't choose them." The meaning hit him like a pulse. He swallowed hard. "Are you saying—" She looked away. "You know the answer." Silence stretched between them, thick, painful, unspoken. A story never finished, a door never closed. Then her voice broke slightly. "Why are you asking me this now?" "Because I don't know what I feel anymore," he confessed. "I don't know who I'm supposed to be with." Alejandra shook her head. "That's not fair, Jose. Not after everything." He took a step toward her, then stopped. "You still think about what happened?" "It's hard not to," she whispered, "especially when I see you chasing the same heartbreak again." For a moment, the room felt too small for both of them, too full of memories, regrets, and things they never dared to say. Then Alejandra walked out, ending the conversation before it broke her completely. Outside, Paul returned discreetly to his phone and sent a short message. "She agreed to leave with me. Do you want me to continue?" Jose stared at the text far longer than he needed to. This was the moment of truth, the turning point, the line between trust and betrayal. He typed 2 words, "Keep going." He thought he was prepared. But when he saw them walking toward a car, laughing lightly at something Paul said, something inside him cracked open. He didn't know whether it was jealousy, one of fear, or the realization he might have just gone too far. But one thing was certain. The experiment was no longer just a test. It was a trap, and he might be the one falling into it. The ride with Paul felt strangely calm for Damaris. Maybe it was the relief of stepping away from the chaos that had exploded inside the house. Maybe it was the way Paul listened, really listened, without judgment or pressure. Or maybe it was simply the comfort of sitting beside someone who didn't feel like a sinking ship. When the car stopped outside a quiet lounge, she didn't protest. She didn't think about optics or consequences or how it might look. She just followed him inside, drawn by the heavy ache sitting in her chest. "What would you like to drink?" he asked gently. "Something strong," she murmured. He nodded and ordered whiskey. When the glass arrived, she didn't wait for ice or a toast. She took a long drink, the burn sliding down her throat, loosening the knot she had carried since the car was taken from her driveway. "I don't recognize the man Jose is becoming," she confessed. "It's like he's slipping through my hands." Paul leaned his elbows on the table. "Or maybe he's showing you who he's always been." She didn't answer, but the slightest tremor crossed her expression. "Tell me something," she asked quietly. "Do you think someone can fall in love again if they realize they're not happy anymore?" "Of course they can," Paul replied. "It happens every day." She swallowed hard. "I love him, but I don't know if love is enough to stay." He didn't push her. He didn't encourage or discourage. He just sat there, letting her fill the silence with thoughts she had been too proud or too scared to say out loud. When the whiskey reached the bottom of the glass, she sighed. "I'm afraid of wasting years with someone who can't give me stability." "And that fear," Paul said softly, "already tells you the answer you're looking for." The truth stung. It always does. Meanwhile, Jose paced the living room like a man trapped inside a nightmare he had written himself. Every tick of the clock made the room feel smaller. Every thought burned hotter. What was he doing? What had he become? Had he really pushed the woman he wanted to marry into another man's company? When Alejandra walked in, she studied him quietly, concern softening her features. "You're shaking," she said. "I don't know what I've done," he whispered. "You set a trap," she replied. "And now you're terrified she might walk right into it." "I needed to know if she loved me for me," he said desperately. "And instead, you tested her loyalty," Alejandra added. "You created a world where she had to fend for herself. And now you're scared of the answer." Her voice wasn't accusing. It was sad, almost tender. He dragged a hand through his hair. "I never meant for it to go this far." "That's the thing about lies," she said. "They always go further than we want them to." Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. A message from Paul. "We're having a drink. Should I continue?" The words made Jose's breath leave his body. Alejandra watched him. "What are you going to do?" He didn't answer. He just typed, "Yes, keep going." But the moment he hit send, regret slammed into him. When Jose finally arrived at the lounge, he found them sitting at a small corner table. Damaris's cheeks were flushed, her voice slightly slurred. Paul sat beside her, posture respectful yet undeniably close. The sight hit him like a punch to the ribs. "Let's go home," Jose said tightly. Damaris looked up, eyes glossy. "Why? So we can talk about your bankrupt fairy tale life?" "That's not fair." "Oh, I'm sorry," she snapped. "Is it unfair that I'm drowning while you're too busy proposing at the worst possible moment?" Her laugh was sharp, bitter. "I didn't sign up for this." She grabbed her things and stood. Paul rose too, just in case she stumbled. "Don't touch her," Jose warned. Damaris glared at him. "You don't get to talk to him like that. At least he's acting like a man tonight." The words shattered something in Jose. "Do you want to leave?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she breathed. "Then go." Paul hesitated, unsure if he had permission to step into this mess. "Take her home," Jose finally said. Damaris didn't wait. She walked out, and the moment the door closed behind her, the full weight of Jose's choices crashed onto him. He followed them outside just in time to see Paul hand her a set of car keys. His keys. "I thought the bank took everything," she whispered. "They didn't," Paul answered gently. "Nothing was ever lost." Her eyes widened, the truth landing like a slap. "So this was... what? A game?" she asked, voice trembling. Paul stepped back, guilt flickering in his gaze. "I was hired, Damaris. None of this was real." The ground moved beneath her feet. "Why?" she whispered. Jose stepped forward. "I needed to know if you loved me, even when everything disappeared." She stared at him as if seeing a stranger. "You tested me," she said slowly, "but you never stopped to ask if you were the one failing the test." She turned away, pain tightening her shoulders. "I can't do this anymore. I'm done." "Damaris, no," she said firmly. "You wanted the truth. Here it is. You don't trust me. And now I can't trust you." She walked away, leaving him in a silence so thick he could barely breathe. Inside the house later, Alejandra found him sitting alone. This time, he didn't hide the vulnerability in his eyes. "Tell me," she whispered. "After everything? Do I still mean anything to you?" He looked at her, raw, exposed, shaken, and for the first time, he didn't lie to himself. "Yes," he said, "you do." Something softened in her expression, but she wasn't ready to hand him her heart so easily. "I need time," she whispered, "to understand what all of this means." He swallowed hard. "Take all the time you need." But she stepped closer and added quietly, "I'm giving you one chance, Jose. Just one. Don't make me regret it." And for the first time in days, maybe months, hope flickered inside him, not the desperate kind he clung to with Damaris, but something real, something steady, something he had overlooked for far too long. In the quiet that followed, the pieces of everything Jose had shattered finally settled. The house felt strangely different now, lighter in some corners, heavier in others. The chaos he had created no longer echoed through the rooms. Only truth remained, raw and unfiltered. For days he moved carefully, like someone learning how to breathe again. He didn't chase Damaris. He didn't try to rewrite what had already happened. Some endings weren't meant to be fought. Some doors were meant to close softly without blame. Just clarity. But with Alejandra, things were different. She didn't rush toward him. She didn't promise anything. She simply existed beside him with a quiet presence that felt more honest than anything he had felt in a long time. She challenged him, questioned him, grounded him, and slowly, very slowly, she allowed him into the space she had once closed off. One afternoon, he brought her a small box, not expensive, not elaborate. Inside was the simple gift she once threw away, the one he had rescued from the trash years earlier. When she opened it, her breath hitched. "You kept this?" she whispered. "I kept everything that mattered," he said gently. And this time, she didn't step back. She didn't hesitate. She simply smiled, a small, fragile smile, but real, because what grows after a storm isn't perfect, but it is honest, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes life tests us in ways we never expect, not to break us, not to expose others, but to reveal the truth we refuse to see. Love cannot survive where trust is missing, and trust cannot grow where fear controls the story. The people who love you for real won't need you to lose everything to prove it. They will stay, not because life is easy, but because you matter more than comfort. If you want to know who truly loves you, ask yourself, do they show up when life gets messy? Do they choose honesty over convenience? Do they stand beside you without needing a perfect version of you? Do they comfort you, not compete with you? And most importantly, do they make you feel safe being yourself? If the answer is yes, then hold them close. If the answer is no, walk away with your dignity intact. If this story moved you, even just a little, feel free to share it with someone who needs a reminder that love built on truth lasts longer than any test.